Good morning, afternoon, evening to everybody who is checking in, whether you're watching me on replay, and shout out to the people, especially who are watching live. As y'all coming in, you can shout yourselves out, but you don't have to if you don't want to. We're going to get started in about 10 seconds. I'm just making sure that we are populated on. I'm live in two places. I'm live on TikTok. I'm also live on Instagram. Hopefully, TikTok doesn't restrict my live like they've been doing. Some of my last couple lives. Looks like we're good so far. 30 seconds in. Soul Art New York. Good morning. Good to see you here. What we're going to talk about here today, folks, is how to pull people up to your level. How to pull people up to your level. So any of you who's in a leadership position, and leadership does not necessarily mean that you have a title. You don't have to have a lead. You don't have to have a title to be a leader. A boss is a title, but a leader is not a title. Leader is a position that you hold relative to how other people in your organization see you. And that you can be a leader in your family. You can be a leader at work. You can be a leader with a volunteer organization. You can be a leader in your community. You can be a leader on a sports team. So any of you who's in a leadership position or you wish to ascend to a leadership position, and even if also, if you want to make sure that you're leading yourself, this is really about other people. But if you can take much of what I'm going to say here today for you to also lead yourself, this is all about how you can pull other people up to your level when you are in a position of wanting to help elevate people. And whether those are people who work for you, work with you, they're your teammates, whatever, how can you actually do this? And this is for those of you, again, who have leadership ambitions, or you already have a leadership position when you're working with people and you want to help them perform at a higher level than maybe where they are right now, which in turn will help the group. So any of you who's ever played on a sports team, you understand that when you help other people on your sports team play better, then the whole team does better because the team will perform at a higher level. I was just looking at a video last night of the Chicago Bulls when they played the Detroit Pistons in 1991. So this is the year that Michael Jordan won his first championship. Michael Jordan had been pretty damn good for many years at his level at that point. His teammates weren't quite up to the level that Jordan was at. They weren't going to be as good as Jordan, but they weren't performing at their possible best yet. And Jordan kept pulling his teammates up, pulling them up. And every year they got closer and closer till finally they broke through in 1991. And then they just kept beating everybody for the rest of the decade of the 1990s, as long as Michael Jordan was on the team. And the reason that happened is not because Jordan got so much better. He was already, again, better than everybody. It was just that he elevated his teammates. So today what I want to talk about is how you can do that with any team you're a part of, whether in business, in your personal life, your sports life, or any other aspect of life. How can you start bringing these people up? And there's a formula for doing this. That's what I'm going to explain here today. Before I get into these points, I'm going to remind you all of a couple things, or let me just tell you who I am. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm the author of 35 books. You can see some of them behind me. I've done 4 TEDxTalks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do here is we extract the tools, strategies, and the systems to help athletes get to the top of the sports world, and we apply those tools in the business and professional world so that you can perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and produce more results. Those are the goals for why we do what we do. Performance, consistency, performance. I'm doing it backwards. Performance, consistency, and results. So that's what we're talking about here today. Number one, if you want to pull people up to a higher level from where you are, higher level to where you are, first of all, number one thing you must do is a requirement. Everybody listen to me. Number one requirement is you must be at a level to which other people need to be pulled up. In other words, if you're going to pull people up to your level, you got to be at a level that they need to go up in order to get there. In other words, if you're going to pull people up to your level, you must be at a higher level than they are. You must be performing at a higher level than the people who you wish to help, because you can't help them if you are at the same level as them. You can't help them if you're equal to them. You got to be doing better than them in order to pull them up. They have to see what you're doing. They have to see what you're doing as something that they wish to aspire to and something that they wish to get to in order to even be interested in being pulled up by you. In other words, if you want to pull people up to here, you got to be up here so that they're here and they can look up and say, okay, I do want to be there. And then they will maybe be open to listening to what it is that you have to say, or open to following what it is that you're doing. Because a leader, you go first and other people will follow your lead. Again, think of Michael Jordan, for example. He was already better than all of his teammates, and I think they all understood that. So when he would push them to do things, they were willing to do it because they saw that doing what he was saying might help them play better, and he was right. So you got to be at a level that other people need to be pulled up to. You can't pull people up if you're average. Average means relative to the people that you're trying to help. So you have to be around people who helping them will actually help them. All right, not just keeping them where they're at the same place that they already are. So you got to be in a place that they want to be at. So look at yourself, look at the people who you want to help, who you want to elevate, and ask yourself, are you exemplifying? Are you demonstrating? Are you living in a way that when other people see that, they say, damn, I want to get there too. All right, that's who you have to be if you're going to lead. Because understand that being a boss is when you're telling people what to do, and whether you do it or not, they have to follow it because you have authority over them. Being a leader is when you are showing people what to do, and they want to follow what you're doing because you are doing it. Those are two different things. Now, you can be a boss and a leader at the same time. Some of you maybe have had bosses who are also leaders. They had authority over you based on the job title and the position that they had relative to yours. That makes them the boss. They can fire you and hire you, but also they were a leader, meaning they set the example that you wanted to follow, not that you had to follow, that you wanted to follow. A leader is a person who is followed because people want to. A boss is a person who gets followed because you have to. And those are, again, different, but sometimes you can get both. Sometimes somebody can be a leader and a boss. Now, if you want people to want to do what you're doing, you got to be a leader. And that means you got to be setting the example with the way that you're being, the way you're performing, the way that you're living, and the outcomes that you're producing. When people see that, they say, damn, I want to do that same thing. And now they'll be willing to at least listen to what you have to say. So the question you have to ask yourself every single day is, if all the people who I want to help were to look at the way I'm performing and the way that I'm behaving today, would they want to do what I'm doing? Would they want to follow my lead? Would they look at what I'm doing today? And this is all you ask yourself this today. If the people who I want to help saw the way that I use my 24 hours today, would they say, I want that? I want to do that. I want to start living how that guy or that girl lives. I want to start doing what they're doing. I want to adopt the same mindset and the same habits and the same behaviors as that person. If the answer is anything other than an absolute hell yes, then the first thing you need to do is you need to reassess yourself and look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I not doing that would make other people not want to follow me? And if the answer is an absolute yes, then we'll move on to the next point. But this first thing, you got to be clear on this. This is about your personal integrity. And integrity simply means, and I'll probably do a live on this concept sometime in the future. Integrity simply means that your thoughts and your words and your actions are all in alignment. That's what integrity is. Integrity is the things that you think about, what you want to do, and then the things that you say to yourself and to others, and then the things that you do are all congruent. And if there's a incongruence, there's a disconnect between your thoughts, words, and actions, and we call that being out of integrity, which means you're saying and thinking one thing, but you're doing another thing. Well, nobody's going to follow that person. So since I brought up Michael Jordan, I'll use him as an example. Any of you saw that documentary, The Last Dance, a few years ago? Michael Jordan said, I never pushed any of my teammates to do anything that I wasn't already doing myself. That's what integrity sounds like. That's integrity. If you're going to be a leader, that's integrity. All right, whatever you're telling them to do, you're doing it. All right, so if anybody that you're trying to lead, you ask them or tell them to do something, and they're like, well, they don't want to do it because they don't see you doing it. Well, that means they're questioning your integrity. Now, they might be wrong, but before you ever want to lead or tell another person to do something, it should be obvious to them that you're already doing it. So it shouldn't be a mystery. They shouldn't have to wonder if you're doing it or not. They should see you doing it. And this is part of the show. You got to show them that you're actually doing the thing. Now, there are ways in the world that we live in today that people can kind of front and cheat on this, because in social media, people will show you that they'll show you anything. You don't know if what people are showing you on social media is the actual truth or not. But if you want somebody and follow them for long enough and listen to what they say and look at what they're doing for long enough, you can get a pretty good feel if they're actually living the way they're talking or if they're not. So make sure that you are doing this. This is about you and the person in the mirror. Now let's move on to point number 2. Today we are talking about how to pull people up to your level if you want to help other people perform at a higher level. So number 1, you got to be at a higher level. Number 2, set standards for yourself so that you can set them for others. So this connects directly to my first point. All of my points connect to each other. That's the reason why I call it a formula. Setting standards for yourself so that you can set them for others. Again, I just told you what Michael Jordan said. This is the exact point. He set standards for himself, things that he required of himself. And then because he required them of himself and he was living up to his own requirements, then when he went to his teammates and he said, you need to live up to this requirement, none of them could push back against him because they saw that he was doing it. So again, they couldn't question him because everything he told them to do, he was doing. That is what a leader does. If you're going to tell another person to do something, you better be doing it. Simple as that. All right. It is hard. And the reason why this is a point, the reason why this point matters so much, because I'm sure all of you are listening to me can logically understand everything that I'm saying. The reason why this point matters so much is because most people do not live by a set of standards. And the reason people don't live by standards is not because any of you is unaware of the concept. Most people don't live by standards because it's very hard to live up to a standard. It's hard to live up to standards. All right, standards are easy to live up to only when we feel like doing them. What makes a standard is that you have to live up to it even when you don't feel like doing it. I wrote a whole book on this called The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from Amateurs. It's all about how you show up and deliver even when you don't feel like showing up and delivering. Can you do that? That's what makes a professional a professional. How do you show up when you don't feel like showing up? How do you work when you don't feel like working? How do you perform on the days that you are just tired, you got a headache, your back is hurting, it's raining outside, you had a bad day yesterday, you didn't get any sleep last night, the dog is sick, or your kid kept waking up in the middle of the night? How do you perform on that day? That's what makes a pro a pro. That's what a standard is. The standard is it doesn't matter that you only slept 4 hours last night. You're supposed to be at the gym at 5 in the morning. You're there at 5 in the morning like you're supposed to be. That's a standard. So my question is, how do you deliver in the times when you don't feel like it? Again, that's what makes a standard. The standard is not what you do when you feel good. Now, everybody feels good. Everybody has days where we feel good, and it's easy to do all the stuff we say we're going to do. What do you do when you don't feel good, when nothing's working, when following your standards has not yet produced the desired result? Do you keep showing up and doing the job that you're supposed to do? That's where you build discipline, mental toughness, internal fortitude, and you build up the cachet within yourself, the self-belief within yourself, to where when you tell another person to do something, your words have conviction and they actually believe you because of the energy of how you say it, because they can tell that you know that you are living up to everything that you're asking them to do. And that is required if you're going to be a leader. That's not required to be a boss. So to be a boss, you can make somebody live up to a standard and you don't have to do it yourself. To be a leader, you're going to hold somebody to a standard. You have to be doing everything that you tell them to do. Because if they don't see you doing the stuff that you're telling them to do or asking them to do, they won't do it. Because actually, as a leader, you can't really tell anybody to do anything. A boss can tell people to do things. A leader can only ask, and you can influence, you can persuade, but you can't really make anybody do anything as a leader. That's why leadership is harder than being a boss. Because a leader, people have to want to follow you. They have no obligation to do anything that you say when you're a leader. As a boss, they have an obligation because you can fire people, you can get them suspended, you can get them kicked off the job. But as a leader, you have none of that leverage. That's why being a leader is a much harder job. So you hear people bragging about being a boss. Rappers always talk about being a boss. That's cool to be a boss. There's nothing wrong with being a boss. If you own a business, you have employees, you're a boss, technically. But being a leader is much harder because, again, nobody has to listen to you. So when people see you living up to your standards, that's when, even when you don't feel like it, that's when they will have conviction in you. They'll have belief in you, and they won't push back when you push them to do something that they don't feel like doing because you do it. All right, I didn't feel like working yesterday, but I worked. So then when I tell somebody that I'm leading that they need to work, even though they don't feel like it, they will listen to me because they saw me doing the same thing. So they have to see you doing it. All right, everybody understand this? Any of you who's a parent, understand that your kids are following your lead whether you want them to or not. Whatever they see you doing, that's what they're going to do. Now, of course, you are also a boss. Most parents are bosses and leaders because you can make your kids do something, even if you're not doing it. You can make them clean their rooms, even if you didn't clean your room. But at the same time, you are a leader because everything that they see you doing, that's what they're eventually going to do. It's not just what you say, it's what you do. And the saying is with parents that your kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. In the long run, your kids are just going to follow your behaviors and not going to follow your words. So as a parent, any of you who's a parent and your kid is around you on a consistent basis, they will eventually just follow everything that they see you doing, not what they hear you saying. So you need to check yourself. Again, the second time I said this in the first point, I'm saying it again in the second point, and y'all should catch this. Is the reason why I'm repeating this, is that as a leader, the most important thing you need to do is look in the mirror. Because this is what leaders do. Leaders look in the mirror, whereas followers look out the window. The window means you're looking out and seeing what everybody else is doing, whereas a mirror means you're looking at yourself and asking yourself, what are you doing? And if you're holding yourself to standards and you're holding yourself to live up to your own integrity on a consistent basis, you become a leader by default. You don't even have to have a team. You can be by yourself. If you're just consistently showing up and doing what you're supposed to do and delivering on a consistent basis, eventually what's going to happen is other people are going to notice that, and they're going to say, who is this guy? Who is this girl? How are they doing this? And they're going to start watching you. And then eventually they're going to start following your behaviors without you even telling them to do so. They're just going to follow you because they see what you're doing. They're like, damn, all right, this person's getting these results. How are they doing it? They're going to start watching you. They're going to see what you're doing, and they're going to start following your actions just because you're showing up on a consistent basis. So you don't even have to know a person personally to lead them. You can do it through, if you're online, you're consistent in doing what you do, whatever it is, and it's consistent and people believe that it's real, and you're being honest with yourself, people will follow you. Like literally, social media is literally called followers because people have to lead. You got to step up and do your thing. So when people understand that you mean it and you're thorough about it and you believe it and you're living what you talk about, they will believe you and they will follow where your lead to where you're going if that's where they want to go. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, we are talking about how to pull people up to your level. Number 3, make sure that if you are leading people and if you tell people or you influence or persuade people and say, follow me, then you better take them to where they are in a better position with you than they are without you. In other words, you are making a promise by stepping up into a leadership role. All right, and I want all of you to understand, listen very closely to what I'm about to tell you. When you step into a leadership role, you are making an unspoken promise that if people follow you, they will do better following you than they would do without following you. That's the unspoken promise that you're making. Even if you never say it out loud, that's the promise that you're making. Is that, all right, if you follow me, you're going to get better and more results by doing things my way than you would get doing things your way. That's the unspoken promise of a leader. And if you follow through on that, then the people who followed you will sing your praises for the rest of your life. And if you don't follow through on it, they will never trust you again. That's the penalty of leadership. And this is the role that you accept, whether it is explained to you explicitly, as I just did, or everybody who's not listening to me right now. If they step into a leadership role, they are making this promise too, even if nobody told them. All right, I'm telling you, so you got an advantage because I'm telling you explicitly what it is. But even if nobody ever told you this, this is the role that you accept when you're a leader. This is the role that you accept as a leader. Any of you who's a parent, this is a role that you have. Your kids are looking at you, and you want your kids to look back when they're adults and they have families of their own, and look back and say, hey, my parents, maybe they weren't perfect, but by following their lead and following their guidance, I'm glad because it put me in a better space maybe than I would have been had I not had them. All right, that's what you want your kids to say about you. And I'm using parents as an example here because you're a leader by default, whether you want to be or not. Those of you who are leaders in business, all right, the people who are with you in your business, in your company, they better do better with you than they would do without you. Or again, they won't trust you again. If you are a coach, a trainer, a consultant, a whatever, anywhere that you have a mastermind leader, you have people who are getting into your world and following your programs and your teachings or whatever, all right, they better do better with you than they did without you. That's the promise that you're making. And by the way, some of you who are listening to this, and maybe this is the first time you've considered what I'm talking about here. What's up, Shaw 30? I see you. Appreciate that. Those of you who are hearing this for the first time, understand something. This is the penalty of leadership, because you may be listening to this like, damn, that's quite a burden to have on your shoulders when you're a leader, that you have to make sure that people do better with you than they did without you. Yes, this is the penalty of leadership. The penalty meaning this is the burden that you accept as a leader, is that you have to continually help people do better because they're following you. That's the job of a leader. And understand that in life, everybody, there are no perfect outcomes. There are no perfect scenarios. There's no perfect situation. Everything has a trade-off. The question is not whether or not you can avoid the trade-off, because you can't. The question is, which trade-offs are you willing to accept? So when you step into a leadership position, the trade-off is you must live up to your own standards. Number 2, you must be performing at a super high level. And number 3, everybody who's following you is expecting you to help them do better than they would do without you. All right, that's the burden that you have on your shoulders as a leader. And if you are a leader, this comes as a package deal. You don't have a choice. This is not optional. So it's not like, when you get a car and you can get the sunroof, and you can get the Bose sound system, and you can get the 20-inch rims, and you can get the leather seats, or you can leave all those out and save some money. See, it's not like that. All right, this is in leadership. You get all that comes with it, and you can't take them off. All right, you got to pay for all of it. All right, they're not optional. The sound system, the sunroof, the power steering, the leather seats, the 20-inch, they all come as part of the deal when you're a leader. You get all of it. You got to pay for all of it. You cannot optionally remove them. Everybody following what I'm saying here? So the biggest concern any human being has when they decide to listen to or follow another person is this actually going to work? That's the question we all ask, right? You ever joined a coaching program, or you joined somebody's mastermind, or you bought a ticket to go to a conference or an event? The number one question you have in your mind is this investment going to be worth it for me? All right. Is it going to work? If I hire this guy as a trainer, is it actually going to help me get in shape? If I join this guy's coaching program or this girl's coaching program, is it actually going to do what they say it's going to do? If I buy a ticket to this event, am I actually going to learn all the stuff that they say that I'm going to learn? Is it going to be worth the investment? That's the number one question people are asking anytime they decide to follow another person. And you, as a salesperson who is offering yourself as the person to be followed, you must deliver. This is your responsibility. No exceptions, no excuses. So I told you, leadership has I call it the penalty of leadership for a reason, because it ain't easy. And that's why leadership ain't for everybody. All right, so everybody, not everybody who hears this needs to step into a leadership role, but if you choose to, this is the deal. Okay? So your job as a leader is to show them that their decision was a good idea and prove to them that their decision was a good idea. And that's your job every day. All right, so let me recap these points. So you got a question or comment, go ahead and put I'm up to your level. You want to pull people up to a higher level, 3 things you got to do. Number 1, you must be at a higher level. You want to pull people up to a higher level, you must be at a higher level. You can't pull people up if you are not above them. You got to be doing better and more and have more results than other people if you're going to lead. You can't lead somebody who you're behind. Doesn't make any sense. Number 2, you must set standards for yourself so that you can set them for others. In other words, you're going to be pushing people to live up to certain standards, but you must be living up to those standards. You can't tell people to do something that you're not doing. And they need to see you doing it. They need to know that you're doing it so that they are never questioning whether you are telling them to do something that you're not doing or not. They need to see that you're doing it every day so that when you tell them to do it, they can't question you. And if they can question you, that means they haven't seen you doing it. This means maybe you need to make it more obvious, or maybe you're not doing the stuff that you're telling them to do. Either way, they're not going to listen. Number 3, make sure that if people decide to follow you, that you help them win. If people decide to follow you, you better help them get a success. That is your duty. That is your obligation to help people get success. If you get them to follow you, get them to buy in, they're putting their trust in you, which means it is your responsibility to deliver and help them get the outcome that you said you would help them get, or lead them to the promised land that they otherwise wouldn't get by themselves. You look at every leader out there, that is the promise that they're making. And if you don't follow through on that promise, then people will never trust you again. But when you do follow through on that promise, those people will follow you to the ends of the earth forever because you delivered on your promise. So that's what it is. Anybody got a question, go ahead and put it in the comment section right now. I'll address them. I'll see if I got any. Let's see. A good thing on TikTok, they didn't restrict me today. So I guess I didn't say anything controversial. So Overland said leader equals impact, not title. Exactly. So you don't have to have a title to be a leader. You can be a leader with no title. Question is how to get in shape fast, quick, and easy. You can't do all 3. You can get in shape fast and quick, but it ain't gonna be easy. I'll take the easy part out. I can answer that question. Somebody said, Sherlock said, put me in, coach. Somebody said, why aren't you an athlete? I am an athlete. Former 9-year professional athlete. Did you hear my intro? Iron sharpens iron. I'm a messenger. Okay. Anybody got a question on IG? I didn't see anything come through on IG. All right. So I guess I was excellent today. No questions. So everybody, Work on Your Game Masterclass comes out every single day on Apple and Spotify. You want to hear me talk with messages like this every single day. You can get it for free for now. Eventually, we're going to take all that stuff down and we're going to start selling it. I'm telling you now. So you better be listening to that show every day while it's available. And Work on Your Game University, you'll like to have me as your direct coach. You'll like to have me help you become the leader that you want to be so that you can perform at your highest level, find your ideal audience and group that you're supposed to serve, and build a business around it. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Again, our 3 tiers, our 3 focuses, not tiers, focuses: performance, consistency, and producing results. That's all at Work on Your Game University. That link is in my bio on whatever app you're watching me on right now. Everybody have a great day. Work on your game.